Welcome to the Autistic Culture Podcast Advocacy Edition. In these episodes, we tackle the issues that matter most to autistic people.
Each week, we share our insights and the experiences of our guests on how to live authentically and thrive as autistics.
I'm Dr. Angela Kingdon, the linguistic autistic.
And I'm Matt Lowry, licensed psychological practitioner. Let's dive into strategies for living your best, most authentically autistic life. Episode 96, Academia and Ableism. Hey, Angela.
Well, hey, Matt.
We've got a big topic today because, as you recall, either last week, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks in the future,
week, yep.
At some point, we will have been future talking about your experience learning about autism and how it's a maddening experience because we run into what we call ableism, a discriminatory practice against disabled people in academia. And because it either we either have talked about it, will talk about, will have talked about, will have not talked about it. Both. At some point, we decided that we need to dedicate an entire episode to this because it's the reason why there are so few of us in this field.
Right. I shared with you that I thought it was nice and lovely that you were one of two autistic people in Kentucky that could diagnose autism. Yeah. Like, I thought that was nice. I didn't have a problem with that, but I had no idea what that actually meant. I was like inspired by it. I was like, I would like to be an autistic person here in the UK diagnosing people. Let me figure out the steps and I will check the boxes. And how hard could this be? And then I realized, which I don't think, like, when you say I'm one of two autistic people in Kentucky that can diagnose autism, like, it leaves out the part, which is now very obvious to me, which is the DSM is the Diagnostic Manual by the American Association of American Psychology Association or whatever. Yeah. So this is the psychology department that thinks this is a good way to describe autism.
Yeah.
So that means in order to become a person who diagnoses autism, if you are autistic, you have to take a whole bunch of classes where you learn a whole bunch of things that are not true about yourself by people who know a lot less and not kill them or end up in jail.
Yeah.
And I am struggling with the latter part of that.
Yeah. And this is the thing because, number one, up until a few weeks ago, there were 3 of us in Kentucky. Now there's only 2 of us. Possibly I might be the only one at this point because I haven't talked to the other one in a while. But the burnout exists. But yes, the reason there is a massive gatekeeping against autistic people because in order to get the degrees and pieces of paper, in order to do this job, you have to eat a lot of shit. And for instance, like when I taught psychology, this is the book that I taught psychology from. Let me give you a definition of autism from this.
Oh, wait, this is what you taught.
Yes.
I feel like this will be good.
This is the manual that I was required to teach from the University of Kentucky, right?
Now I'm nervous again. Okay.
Autism, a disorder characterized by deficient communication and social interaction, is marked by an impaired theory of mind. People with autism have difficulty inferring others' thoughts and feelings. They do not appreciate that playmates and parents might view things differently. Most children learn that another child's pouting mouth signalizes sadness, and the twinkling eyes mean happiness or mischief. A child with autism, which is related to malfunction of the brain areas that enable attending to others, fails to understand these signals. This
that was your job to teach it.
That was my job to teach with that definition.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. Number one, people who come into academia, people who want to do this job, are taught wrong. Number two, if you are an autistic person who is doing this, number one, you either have to eat a lot of shit and say, "Ah, yes, I am a malformed human," or you argue with people, and people don't like to be argued with.
No, which I know we're going to get into. So
Yes.
a few episodes back, I'll put the link in the show notes. We did that episode about protecting Kentucky kids.
Oh yeah.
And we had Kat Flora on it. And at the time,
I remember her.
Back in my innocence of her talking about it, she talked about how she was in graduate school and how she had to like deal with behaviorism, learning about
Yes.
behaviorism. And she's like, I hate all that shit. I ignore it as much as I can. She said something and I sort of made a note, but again, thought that can't be that big of a deal. There's one class on behaviorism. You just ignore it. I mean, whatever, I could do that. So when I started this grad school journey, I really did not have an understanding of what ableism in academia even was. And I reached out to Kat and I was like, am I crazy? This is crazy, right? Is this crazy? Am I crazy? Because then I started doubting myself. I was like, this must not, I'm sure I'll just nicely explain it and the professors will agree. Like I will send them some citations or something. And she's like, oh no, and it gets worse. Let me tell you some stuff. Yeah. So I was, when you said maybe we should do an episode, I was like, can we bring Kat? She's been my like whoopee. She's been my therapy blanket for this experience. Cause she like seems to be thriving. She like wins awards. It all seems to be working out for her. And I'm like, why, if Kat can do it, I can do it. So.
Well, and this is the thing, because again, and Kat, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like looking at a duck. Everything is calm on the surface, but you're paddling like crazy underneath the water.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So tell us about your experience, because you have faced, dare we say, a bit of ableism in your journey to do this, because you're on your way to do the thing that I do, because holy God, we need more of us.
Yes, and the reason that I want to do what you do instead of getting the PhD is, from my understanding, it's the only way that we can do diagnoses for autism. And so I was just kind of trying to like fast track that. Also, I don't think I can mentally or emotionally handle getting a doctorate.
Yeah, well, in Kentucky, in order to diagnose, you can get the PhD, you can get the PsyD, or you can get the LPP. And both the PhD and the PsyD involve a lot of socializing with neurotypicals and a lot of defense against, the dark arts or something. But it's one of those things. I chose the LPP route because they're like, yeah, you can do everything that a PhD or a PsyD can do, but you don't supervise people. I'm like, sign me up for that one, because I don't want to supervise anybody.
No,
but that's
not.
Before I realized that there might be autistic people in need of supervision, because I didn't realize how common we were, and I didn't realize the problem that we faced, because I knew that academia was difficult for me. I just didn't realize how many of us there were.
And so I want to pause you on the supervision stuff, because that sounds like management if you're not in if you're not in academia. So in this path, I will need to spend 3 years under clinical supervision, where almost certainly a neurotypical who I disagree with on everything will basically be my boss. And I already am dying thinking about it. So this year is supposed to be a foundational year for me. And then it's 3 years of having a supervisor who is almost certainly not autistic.
Yeah.
Who gets to decide if what I'm doing for 3 years is right. Like if I'm reading that description from that book that you read or not.
Yeah.
So it's not just like management, like, hey, can you have time off or something? It's like literally supervising you learning the job.
In Kentucky, and I'm going to give you an advanced trigger warning on this. In Kentucky, I needed 5 years of clinical supervision in order to be independent. And my supervisors were mainly one of my supervisors was Jessica Newland, the other person in Kentucky who is autistic and can diagnose. But she came after the neurotypicals. My first supervisor was very much into Warhammer 40K. So we got along quite well, but he was in Elizabethtown. I was in Bardstown. They didn't want to pay for me to drive a half hour back and forth for supervision. So they transferred me to another person that I shall not name. And she was incredibly neurotypical. When I was talking about, and again, trigger warning ahead of this, be prepared. When she asked me what I was mainly doing, I talked about my autism groups that I did in the schools and how I identified in 2008 as Aspie, because back then I identified with the Asperger's label. Before we knew that Asperger's was a horrible person. But yes. So anyway, I said, yeah, I do the Aspie groups. And she says, Matt, you can't say that. I was like, why not? I'm Aspie. And she said, Matt, again, trigger warning, you can't call yourself that. That's like calling yourself retarded. And I said, well, it's me. It's all my life. It's the people I understood. It's what I went to school and studied. And she said, Matt, you can't have Asperger's. You're a professional. And she says, you understand. And after that, I got into a thing with my not clinical supervisor, but the supervisor of the clinic at the time, who just didn't understand shit, right? So he got mad that I was arguing with him, and he went to my supervisor, and she said, Matt, I think that part of your problem is that you can't take other people's perspectives. And I said, well, it's my perspective that you believe that I don't have the ability to take other people's perspectives. So my perspective of your perspective, my perspective is that I'm flawed.
You basically did the double empathy research before it even existed.
Yes, exactly.
There it was, a one-man show.
Yeah, so again, this supervisor and I did not get along. And that's when I was transferred over to Jessica Newland, who is, again, the only other person in Kentucky who currently does autism evaluations besides me. So she's got a PhD, and for a long time, boy, she argued against the ABA, and I think it burned her the hell out. But yeah, it is a rough experience out there to have your peers, colleagues, and supervisors criticize you on a daily basis for existing.
Yeah. So, Kat, let's go back to you. What was your undergrad? Just to give us a little bit of your background. Where are you in your process?
So I just completed my bachelor's in psych with a brain and cognitive science concentration.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And I graduated with honors too. And as someone who barely attended and barely graduated high school. So thanks, Matt, for making me go back to school.
Wow.
It took enough poking with a stick, but I'm glad you made it.
No, you did. Thank you.
well, what comes next for you?
Yeah.
I am going to attend UK, University of Kentucky's online Masters in Counseling program.
Hey, that's the thing that I did there.
But it's an online version, which I would not be going to college if it were not online. Online it has its issues, but it's so much better than in person. I think I get like non-flashbacks whenever I'm in a classroom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, in a classroom, you can be criticized for not quote unquote paying attention because you're looking around or tapping or fidgeting or, whatever have you.
They wouldn't let me have paper in like elementary school. And so I would like hide a marker and I'd be like coloring on my legs under the desk because it was the only way I could pay attention. And then it would be time to go. And then I would just have like a marker all over my legs. But it kind of worked out because now I'm colored all over.
For our podcast listeners, demonstration of tattoos.
Oh, that's what colored all over me. I even missed that, and I was looking at her. So, how long is that program?
It's 2 years. There's an accelerated program, but I am pretty dang burned out right now. So I've decided to take the one that takes a little bit longer, which is still full time while working.
Because tell us about some of the things that have led to the burnout. Because you have had some rough experiences.
Yeah, I look real cute on social media doing
You
all my
do.
stuff, but
You got a
thanks.
house, you like look all smiley and happy. I get very confused by social media. Everyone's so skinny and happy and they have like very neat houses.
Okay, so I've put on like maybe 25, 30 pounds since this started. So there's that. I do love my house.
Yeah.
But it needs a
very
lot of
nice.
work. But yeah, I've like borderline, I guess, have been a functioning alcoholic through this. Yeah, it's been that.
Oh,
has
see,
been the
nobody
only
told
way.
me that was one of the secrets.
That is my
Maybe
secret.
I need to drink.
No, don't do that.
No.
Don't do that because it's
I'm
so hard.
terrible.
'Cause
I'm
it's
one of
so
those
good.
autistic people that like can't drink. I can't like weed, alcohol, none of it.
This is a good time to mention that Kat and I have talked after you get all those letters and degrees and things that you want to focus on studying alcoholism in autistics and with Trailhouse, because that is a common thing for us to turn to substance abuse in order to numb out the intensity and the criticism and the hurt.
Very like, well, I also learned this thing recently. One of my friend's husbands, trigger warning, I guess, unfortunately committed suicide, and it was really messed up. And he was an alcoholic and he drank every day. And at his funeral, they were talking about how he wore the same thing every day. I think he would wear socks once and then throw them away, and then they had to buy more. And like all these little things started being
because autistic people die by suicide. It's like 9 times more likely for women, and I think 7 times more likely for autistic men to die by suicide. Yeah, because it becomes a better option. Like really, there have been points in my life where I did like an honest weigh up, and I'm like, this seems like a better option than trying to survive in this world.
I went through all these medications, all this treatment. I ended up doing electroconvulsive therapy at one point.
Oh, you did that?
I did 5 sessions. They wanted me to do 6, but I've never felt something so strong in my heart. I felt like my brain was like under attack. And so I didn't do the last one. And after that, they said it was like so effective. It would help all this stuff. This was prior to my autism diagnosis, and it didn't help. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm now going to attempt, because obviously the thing that helps the most, that is damaging the one thing I care about the most, my brain. But my whole point about bringing my friend's husband up is that I'm like, I've got to like look into like, what is the connection? Obviously we're autistics. There's like this certain, I don't know, like bootstrap, like pull yourself up by the bootstraps, like just like tough guy mentality.
It's the have you tried just suffering.
Yeah, exactly that. And so I learned that while, if you've done any research about like ketamine and mushrooms and even ECT, it gives your brain the opportunity to form new connections and new pathways and try new things. It's like good for creativity. It's good for cognitive restructuring, all that stuff. But when you drink, it narrows that focus. And over time, the more you drink, the more narrow your focus is. And I experience that whenever I get like this overwhelm of, oh my God, what do I need to do next? There's so many things. What's most important? But I can have a beer and be like, if I like go ahead and mop the floor, that's like one thing that I've had done. That's awesome. Great. And I can just like move on and coast through. And so that narrowing is not good long-term probably, but that's how it kind of helps me. And that's what I've done. I've done most of my homework assignments while intoxicated.
Yeah.
And because I panic if I don't. I just freak out. The anxiety, it's bad.
And to give the listeners some idea of where you're coming from on this, you're the one who coined the term expectation sensitivity, because
I didn't think of the connection to that. Shut up. No, keep talking about it.
You coined the term expectation sensitivity, and years ago, you identified a link between endometriosis, PMDD, PCOS, and like EDS, and our autistic meat bodies having wonky connective tissue stuff, because you are very good with understanding these connections, because you deal with all these problems, and you're looking at problems from an autistic point of view. So when you have these insights into the way that alcoholism and autism interact and all this stuff, you've got a pretty good track record of figuring out shit that other people have not yet figured out, which is the reason why I keep beating you with a stick and forcing you to get a degree.
Okay, I'm on my way, I promise.
But I'm so confused about, I mean, I do get that. I get the desire to have more people like us in positions of power. Like, that's the only, like, we have to do that. But what I don't get is, like, Kat, you have a lot of vulnerabilities and a lot of trauma, and you've been through a lot of stuff here. And the process of going through school, to me, has been so shockingly traumatizing.
Yes.
Like, I'm so shocked by how bad it is. And I'm like,
it's so bad.
It's so bad. And I'm like, I'm not at burnout. No, I'm 3 months in. I am not at burnout.
The narrator says, not yet anyway.
Right. But it is inevitable that I am going to hit burnout if I stay. So I'm like, what is better for me, for humanity? I think it's better to have people like us in power, but also my last burnout wasn't a great experience. I would like to not repeat that.
Yeah.
So it feels like such a, how do we get there inside this system? I guess it's like, do you believe in change within the system?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or do you believe in change from the outside? You know, like, if we're going to make changes from within the system, then we have to ask autistic people to take some pretty big hits.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing like that. Oh, I can't remember what it is. You know, the gift horse, and then there were soldiers inside, and then they were
the Trojan horse.
That's kind of what I'm doing with my Facebook, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, oh, don't I look cute? Hire me. Now let's make some change.
Right.
Yeah. But
but in the meantime, you have to deal with the trauma that comes from behaviorism, saying that autistic people are a problem in need of a cure, and you have to write papers that the professor must agree with, because if the neurotypical professor disagrees with you, you get a failing grade.
No, I correct them.
Ooh.
And I will take it to their higher ups if it's a problem. Because I have research that backs everything that I say. And if you see a citation and you still want to give me a bad grade after that, we'll talk to someone above you.
Tell us about the energy that it takes to do that.
Oh, it's absolutely fucking exhausting. It's a constant game of, is this worth it? Like, is this going to facilitate enough change? I found on discussion board posts, more so than in papers where the teacher just sees it versus where the class sees it. Like, I think I've talked a couple of people out of being BCBAs on discussion board posts. And that's kind of where I don't know, borderline recruiting people in some way. To be like, hey, I can add you onto like Autistic Connections if you want to sit and watch on there and see kind of where I'm coming from and see our experiences. I've sent some people Matt's website. And I've even had like phone conversations with people who don't even live here about it.
So
but, yeah, it's exhausting.
if you have like there have been many little things, but one of the big things for me was in child development class, there was one, I don't know how many classes there are, 13, however many classes, however many weeks there are. One class was just on autism, which is great. I mean, that's fine. I have no problem. I mean, there's a lot to cover in child development. So one class is on autism. And the professor spends most of the class talking about, first of all, I could not get through it. I physically could not get through it because first she talks about the stuff that Matt read. It's a deficiency. There's no twinkle in their eye. They can't relate to other people. No perspective taking. Fine. Okay. Whatever. Heard it. And then she's like, but there is a solution. It's called the Young Autism Project. Man named Lovas has figured out what's wrong with autistic people and how to fix them. And now I'm going to share with you some success stories, and we're going to watch some videos.
Fix them. Go fuck yourself.
Of how great the Young Autism program was for autistic people. And I, like, at that point, I'm like shaking. I'm quaking. And I can't yell out. I get,
Are you sitting in a classroom when they're talking about that?
So it's online. So it was a recorded lecture. And if I was in person, I know my voice would not, my mouth would have the words would have come out.
Yeah.
So I stopped watching, and then I started emailing, and I started with the professor, and then she just seemed to forward it to her boss, and her boss forwarded it to the head of the program, and the head of the program forwarded it to the head of the whole grad school. And maybe this is good. And then the head of the whole grad school is like, you've brought up some really important issues. And I like rewrote the lecture and provided about 200 citations,
all of the energy,
the normal
holy
amount.
cow,
the normal amount.
Yeah.
And then we get on a call, and she's like smiling and just so lovely. She's like, this means so much to us.
Oh, good.
A lot of conversations have been happening in the background. You would never know. It's so important to have the student's position. And I'm like, oh, this is why I'm here. This is going so well. And she's like, but it's really important we talk about personal attacks.
Yeah.
And you're making a lot of personal attacks here with which of the 200 citations was a personal attack? I'm not sure. You're
also a woman saying that to another woman.
Oh, how about a black woman? How do you like that? How do you like a black woman saying that?
Man, come on, girl.
I'm like, you know what it's like to be in the minority, in an oppressed minority. Like, what are you talking about? So she came off as so like nice and accepting, and I had made 2 requests. One, don't let that class stay up there. Fix the class. Here's a new one. I provided slides. And number 2, there's an exam question, which is basically like, what's wrong with autistic kids and how do we fix them? And I'm like, here are 3 possible rewrites for this question. Please rewrite this exam question. And she's like, we're not going to make any of those changes, but we are having discussions. But in order for you to stay in the program, we need to work on your style, because attacking professors with these personal attacks is a problem. So I realized the whole reason she wanted to set up a call with me was to like yell at me.
Shit sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, you're not going to do that. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, no.
And then I would not I'm like, we're going to go line by line through this document, and we're going to find a personal attack.
I love
but she kept saying, what I really appreciate about autism is the direct communication style. I love that you just said something.
Obviously not.
I'm like, yeah, unlike what you're doing right now, which is interesting because you set up so then I called her out on everything, which was apparently a personal attack.
Well, right now we've got to go to a commercial break, but when we come back,
yes, we do.
When we come back, we're going to talk about what we call autistic fragility. We are going to read another example from Autism in Childhood, and we are going to talk more about how to navigate a system that considers factual evidence as personal attacks, because we argue what is right rather than who is right. But we'll come back right after this message, probably from one of us. Have you been thinking about writing a book? Did you know Angela helps autistic people write books and get literary agents? Whether you want to write about your special interest, your autism journey, or your professional area of expertise, you can learn more about her work at angelakingdon.com. That's Angela, Kingdon, like November.com. She helped me write my book. And we're back because Angela has just talked about the traumatic experience of being dehumanized within a classroom setting, saying, "Hi, please don't dehumanize me." Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to me.
Yes, please don't dehumanize.
Yes, please don't dehumanize us. And then when you say, please don't dehumanize us, they say, well, you see, when you argue with me, you are hurting me because I am teaching you how unhuman you are, and it's not your fault that you're inhuman. Because, well, okay, so let's
please
give
don't
a
argue
description
about
here.
it. Just lay down and take it like a dog. I believe.
Yes, because the people that are teaching your class have learned that, and I quote from Childhood and Adolescence Psychological Becoming, the Psychology of Becoming a Person, 3rd edition, that autism, the most central and pervasive feature of autism is the lack of human contact, physical, visual, or verbal. The child may seem emotionally intense, but his emotions do not fit the usual qualitative categories of anger, fear, amusement, and so forth. His feelings seem to be bound up in the inanimate, preferably mechanical or physically manipulable things. Autistic boys outnumber autistic girls 4-1. Typically, the autistic child is a firstborn, but they may have other brothers or sisters and other such things that we'll continue a series on how terrible these are, because I just bought new highlighters and we'll go with this. But this is a thing about arguing with people who have learned nonsense, because when you say, have you heard the most up-to-date information? Like, there's an equal number of autistic boys and girls and non-binary people and trans people, because the old data does not reflect us, and you provide a whole bunch of citations. Neurotypical people thrive on 3 things: power, prestige, and profit. And when we say, that is incorrect, that is factually inaccurate, let me provide you what is accurate, they perceive it as a personal attack, because you're saying that their information is wrong. And
but their information is wrong.
They prefer to cling to information that is wrong because it is a personal attack, because of this top-down social hierarchy. They are your teacher, and therefore they are correct. So tell us about that, and tell us about your experiences, Angela. Tell us about your experiences, Kat, because this has been my entire damn life.
It's very confusing to me that it felt like a loop, like there was no way out of it. So if I correct you in any way, even with citations, the first time I did this, I posted a citation. I was like, in today's brain and cognitive science class, whatever it was, this thing was said about autism. It was dated in 2008. Here's some new research that has come out. I posted something about synaptical pruning, the mTOR protein research. I'm like, here's new research. I'm like, here's one article. Here are 3 others. If you want to know more, I'm happy to talk about it. And I got an email saying it was a personal attack.
Yeah.
And to use citations. And I was like, well, this is very interesting, because in the post, I did not use citations. I used a URL.
Yeah.
And I was like, is the problem that I'm not using APA formatting?
No, it's not about that. It's not about academics. It's not about logic and academics and academia. Everything's fucked. It's disgusting. It's nonsensical. You're never going to make sense of it. It's disgusting.
I'm like,
you're never going to make sense of it. Ever. No.
There must be a thing.
Oh, God.
That it's like wrong to post links. So I went in and I was like, okay, I fixed the citations. And then I wrote back to him, like, thank you so much for letting me know I fixed the citations.
As your therapy blanket, as you called me. You can't. It's not going to make sense. It's literal insanity. And I don't like that answer either, but you did all the things, and they're just going to make more hoops to jump through.
So I'm like, what would not be a personal attack? That, like, I don't understand. So then I'm like, how much do I want to fight this, and for how long? And
exactly.
I guess, right.
So we're going to go into personal story time on this.
Yes.
One of my favorite professors that I ever had is a man, Fred Danner, who worked, and he might still be in the UK counseling department. I think he worked in school psych or educational psych, but he is one of my favorite professors of all time. He convinced Fayette County schools to start school like 2 hours later. all of a sudden car crashes stopped, grades shot up, but they eventually went back because it was disruptive to the system. But
he is the department chair now,
yeah,
and a professor of educational psychology.
this man is wonderful. I love him. He's probably autistic. So he's the one who taught me about Csikszentmihalyi, the pioneer of the flow state. He is the one who he taught me a lot about creativity. One of the papers that I wrote for him was about creativity. Can it be fostered? So I decided, based on the stuff that he wrote in the guidelines for the paper, it had to be 5 pages. It talked about can creativity be fostered, talk about Csikszentmihalyi. I decided to make it a comic strip, right? So I made a little comic book about these two people talking, and all of a sudden it just devolves, and Captain Crunch and Jim Henson show up, and they're like, "Why is Captain Crunch here?" Because one of the characters says, "Because Matt can't draw the Segway guy." And then all of a sudden the panels start melting off the page, and all of a sudden there's this color, and all of a sudden it's just like a random blob of color where I just squirted acrylic paint all over the page. And then the last page is a very intricate. I'll send it to you. I've saved it as a PDF, and we can possibly upload that. But the last panel is an intricate drawing of me sitting in the corner with a dunce cap, saying creativity is best left to the professionals, because Fred Danner is the one who taught me about the gatekeepers. Because the gatekeepers are the ones who get to decide what ideas are appropriate, what ideas are inappropriate. And in order to change a system, you have to be conforming enough for the gatekeepers to look you over and let you in, and then you can fuck shit up. But the gatekeepers are the ones that prevent these ideas. Like, again, it spooks them. When you say your research is wrong, your data is wrong, they say, "Oh no, we're gatekeeping you out." And Fred Danner is the principal factor why I went for the LPP instead of the PhD or the PsyD, because I realized that there was way too much gatekeeping, and I would never be able to navigate that intricate system of social interactions, because that just wasn't who I am. So I owe a lot to Fred Danner. And if you get a chance to work with him, please do. If anybody listening to this knows him, tell him I said hi, because he's a big influence on my life. But this gatekeeping, it is. I am now, my job is a gatekeeper of autism, and I let in all sorts of rowdy people, because I'm able to say, sure, you can make eye contact, but I know the reason. Sure, you have relationship difficulties, but I know the reason. And I'm able to do this from a very neuro-affirming perspective and a very autism-affirming perspective, because I took the hits from the gatekeepers in order to become a gatekeeper myself. And it is really, really hard, and it ages you unbelievably to do this.
So when you were teaching psychology, what did you do with it? Did you just teach it? Or did you kind of do more what Kat did and give the both sides of it?
At the time, I used a lot of air quotations.
Okay.
And saying autism is a disorder, and explaining that, and so one professor got really, really mad that my section did better on tests than others, because I was much more creative, and I took a Sesame Street approach to teaching my classes than others, because I thought if you were more interactive and had more visual aids and did other stuff, it would be more interesting, and my kids remembered way more stuff than other people. So I ended up being put in charge of teaching assistants on how to teach. So I was an assistant teaching assistants, and I love that title. But yes, I said, this is what they say, this is what is. So if anyone asks you, this is the answer that they want, but I want you to know what really is, and you need to learn. And at that point, I had worked at Eastern State Hospital. I had known lots of people with bipolar disorder or with schizophrenia, people who have all sorts of issues. And I learned about it from the people who lived it rather than the people who studied it. Right. So, for instance, like one of the greatest teachers I ever had, I can't name him for obvious reasons, but he taught me. He was a very, very smart guy. I hope he still is. again, life expectancy and all that. But he taught me that, when I'm having a flare up, I know consciously that light bulbs don't have microphones in them. But my brain is telling me that the CIA is listening to me through a microphone. So it's very distressing for me because I have this sense that I'm being listened to, but cognitively, I know that I'm not. And there's a lot of these things that we can learn about from actual people rather than the gatekeepers who control that information. And that's what I focused on. So yeah, I was, from an administrative point of view, I was problematic in that regard because I focused on life experiences rather than what was in the textbooks. But I made a point of saying, when you are asked on your multiple choice exam, these are the answers that they are going to look for.
Yeah.
And is that what you do, Kat? Do you just answer the wrong answer? Like if it's a multiple choice test and there's no way to have a discussion, do you just answer the wrong answer that is what they want you to answer?
Sometimes I feel like some professors are really bad at writing multiple choice questions because it should be just a plug-in. It shouldn't be anything more complicated than that. I have reached out a couple of times about stuff that literally made zero sense and be like, I perceive this way and I'm not special. So I know I'm not the only one. So if you see a lot of people getting this one question wrong, you should probably fix it.
But will you answer with something is wrong because it's the right answer?
Yeah, but then I'll correct afterward a lot of times.
Right.
So what is
showing
the
like
cost?
I know what you want me to do.
So much extra work.
No, it's exhausting.
I feel like I have to do I have to do what the assignment is. Then I have to do this alternative assignment that I make up.
And then you're like trying to deal with the emotional regulation stuff, which is awful anyway.
And then no matter what I do, it's called a personal attack, which I guess is this like neurotypical fragility that they just can't handle my extra assignment. I'm like, I did your assignment the way you wanted me to do it. And then I did an extra one.
Something I did because the freaking disability office, all they could give me was 2 extra days on work if I asked in advance.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to not grade me on my eye contact or pedantic speech. Those were the 2 accommodations. Yeah. So I wrote a letter sharing my letter of accommodation with my professors. And then I also said, hey, this doesn't actually help me that much. What helps me is letting you know that I'm autistic. I'm very passionate about this. You may consider me over written communication as like aloof or maybe a know-it-all sometimes or whatever. I know I come off as typical here in my world at work when I have to. But just so you know, I'm not being a butthole. I really want to get everything right. I'm here to learn. So if I ask you a question, I mean that question, and there is no subtext. And that's gone over pretty well so far.
Interesting. I've noticed disability services is really weaponized. So what happens with me is no matter what my question is, like if I'm having a question about the content in a class and I use the phrase I'm autistic or as an autistic person or being autistic or, being someone who reads a lot as a member of the editorial board of Neurodiversity Journal, I'm up to date on more recent research than that. If I say anything like that, as soon as I start to say it, they have this prepared speech they've memorized where they're like, so if we're going to talk about your autism, I need to make sure that you go to disability services. They're the ones who can set up for you all the...
No, they can't.
Yeah. So I'm like, so first of all, they're not going to change what you're teaching. Second of all, you know as well as I do that mid-semester, the amount of time it would take me to get an accommodation would have no bearing on this discussion whatsoever. But it's done with a smile in this way, like, hey, we have a great disability services, support services team. I want to make sure as an autistic person, you're getting all the support you can get. I'm like, I don't need I don't need extra reading time. I don't need extra test taking time. My course is online until I go into the supervision section. So right now it's online. Like I can pick my time of day. Like, I have all the support I need from what Disability Services does. Stop pawning off every question to Disability Services.
No, and half the time they don't even know what they're talking about.
So this is the thing about, again, the neurotypical fragility of it all. Because I've been kicked out of the Louisville Therapy Networking Group for saying exactly this, for saying that I understand autism because I'm autistic. Your approach is misguided. You have learned incorrectly. And I was kicked out because I was criticizing other people's viewpoints. But this is the thing, because the common thing that you'll find among professionals is the phrase, well, I don't need to be depressed to diagnose depression. I can understand depression if I'm not depressed.
No,
but again, they don't see that autism is a neurotype and a way of life. But for right now, we must go to another commercial break. And when we come back, we want to talk about Monique Botha.
We do, yes.
We do. And we're going to talk about more about all of this and the things that I think we forgot to talk about from the last time that I said we were going to talk about things, because we are very passionate, and this is the way. Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast. I practice in Kentucky, and you can get a psychological evaluation or therapy with me if you live in Kentucky, or a consult with me from anywhere in the world, because it's a non-clinical service. Just contact me at www.mattlowrylpp.com. MATTLOWRYLPP, as in licensed psychological practitioner.com.
And you can find out more about writing your book with me at angelakingdon.com.
This is the way. I like that when we have commercial breaks, I throw it to myself and throw it back to myself, because that's how my head works. So you have a quote from Monique Botha?
Yeah. So this is an interesting situation. So my neurodiversity journal, which Sage publication, the editor that I work with is a woman named Dr. Amy Pearson, who's super amazing. And so this is one person I know. She's at the University of Durham. Then the person who runs my program, the conversion program at University of Kent, is a guy named Daniel Noon.
The conversion program.
Yeah, because we're being converted to psychology from our other degrees and majors.
Oh, I thought it was ABA. Go on.
So, So when when I first met Daniel and he called me out for a personal attack, which was the one where I thought I just cited things wrong, because he told me the way it would not be a personal attack is if I cited it, and I thought the link didn't count. So we had this really nice conversation. He's like, it's just really important. I took your comment down because it looks like a personal attack. I don't want other people personally attacking professors. Like, that sets the wrong example. I was like, okay, I got it. I didn't feel like a personal attack. Felt like I was adding information to the discussion. Maybe I didn't understand. He's like, yeah, you need to use citations. I'm like, well, so we go through this, and then I'm like, so I know I've already explained this, but I am autistic. This is how we communicate, kind of like your letter, Kat, where I'm like, he was like, oh, go to Disability Services. I'm like, no, the accommodation I need is just for you to know I'm autistic. That's it.
Just listen to me for a second.
Knowing I'm autistic is the accommodation. He's like, that is so funny. When I did my PhD, I studied with this woman, Monique Botha, and she is autistic, and she used to say the same thing. And she would always ask me, like, hey, have you read any of the research about autism? And I told her no, because I'm not really interested in it. I do ethics. So he's like a Michael Schur guy. So he's like, I do ethics, so I'm not really interested in it. And she was always telling me, but we're such good friends. But she was always telling me, like, I really needed to understand autism better. And I'm like, I wonder if you're a really good friend. Well, this will be interesting. Yeah. I do not know if you're a friend. So then, like, a couple days later, Dr. Pearson from Neurodiversity Journal mentioned Monique Botha, the same person he mentioned, was now going to University of Durham. So I'm like, oh, there's a weird intersection in my world. I should look up this woman. Like, who is this person? I should look this person up. So I look up Monique, and they have this article, which is academic activist or advocate, angry, entangled, and emerging, a critical reflection on autism knowledge production.
Ooh.
And I'm like,
it's good.
What is this? So one of their quotes, there's so many good quotes. I'm going to share two of them, but I'm going to link this because everybody should read it. So they said, I hope to hold the door open for other autistic people to follow in our footsteps and reclaim knowledge production. For this to be truly sustainable, however, we need to speak openly about the hospitality of the field as it stands. It is barely hospitable, if at all. We have emerged, but we carry, and the we she's referring to here is people like her and Stephen Knapp and Damian Milton and, presumably Matt and other autistic people who have survived. She says, we have emerged, but we carry burdens that non-autistic autism researchers do not face. This needs to be acknowledged for any sort of sustainable contribution of autistic people to be realized. I worry that we throw ourselves in, we burn out, and we are disposed.
Yeah.
Disposed.
Right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we'll take it. And because that's what they love. Like when we add to capitalism, they're like, oh, we like these contributions. But then they would like to pick and choose. Neurotypicals like to pick and choose what they keep from us. Like we'll keep the bridges, we'll keep calculus, but we want to run NASA our way. And if that leads to the Challenger explosion, we'll clean that up after. So then in this piece and Monique has achieved a certain amount of success as a critical autism researcher and as an autistic person, and is very aware of this. And so people like me are probably constantly asking for their advice. I did reach out to her about this episode and did not get a reply, but I'm sure this would be the reply here. When I encounter people in this situation, I always do my best to make clear that the system is broken and no one should have to withstand it. I reiterate that it is the field's loss, and it always is, and that it takes tremendous strength to know one's own best interest and to walk away from a field to which they have often already dedicated years of their life. I am also honest, and I tell them that I honestly think about leaving academia completely myself too, often, despite what from the outside looks like an otherwise great career trajectory. So more often than not, I do not feel hope for the field despite this progress, because I see all the empty space where incredible autistic researchers have left. And I feel impatient for change to come more quickly because I am so desperate for these gaps to happen less often.
Yeah.
Damn. That's heavy. But
I see it as, when sea turtles lay eggs on the beach,
mm-hmm.
and they say, oh yeah, there's like 1 million sea turtles. Why are they endangered? But like 99% of the babies get eaten by groupers or something as soon as they enter the ocean. And this is the thing about autistic people in academia. A lot of us love learn. I mean, we have data hunger. We want to learn. We go into this expecting that it's going to be a great place for us because we love learning this. We love learning about autism. We have a lot of experience to talk about the autism. But again, you run into the gatekeepers who tell you that you're wrong. That, again, with my personal situation, one of the things that I would have had to have done with a PhD or a PsyD is go to dinner 2 or 3 times a week to a fancy restaurant, especially Malone's. I don't know what Malone's is or why the faculty loved it so damn much, but that was all they talked about. Where they're going to eat, when they're going to eat, who they're going to socialize with. And I just wanted to talk about the research. I just wanted to talk. There was one person, Bill Stillwell.
Yeah.
And he was autistic as hell. I don't think that he knew it. I don't think anyone ever acknowledged it. He was a professor emeritus because he retired a few years before. But he would just come in and shoot the shit with me. He was very blunt, very direct, very harsh. And with me, I was very blunt, direct, harsh. He loved me. I loved this man.
Right.
We got along quite well. He was my buddy. And looking back on it, back in 3rd grade, I took a computer programming class at UK when I was in 3rd grade. I'm pretty sure he taught that class. Again, my memory could be just filling in the blanks, but it really seems like that was the man. But he was a great, great person. And if I had chosen to do all this, I wish that he would have been the person to guide me on all this, because we got along so damn well. But the problem is, again, there's so much gatekeeping, and there's so many people out there ready to invalidate literally everything because your lived experience doesn't match up with what they had been taught incorrectly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you don't know who's coming next. Like right now, in the program I'm in right now, I don't have a Fred or, somebody that is kind of in the program. I have people outside the program that I have connected with, but in the program, I am the only one. And then when I go into supervision, it's not like I can choose to work with an autistic person. And most of what they teach, because this is what insurance companies, et cetera, want, is CBT.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
medical gaslighting.
bode well. Yeah, exactly. And of course, why did I think that it would be in any way a healthy experience? It makes absolutely perfect sense, but I just didn't take it into account in the process. And
it's
so
it's like when you say, perhaps they rejected it because I formatted it improperly.
Right.
It's knowledge. Why would they not like knowledge? Academia is based on knowledge.
Right. And that's really not what it is. There's a system, and I am a wrench in the works.
Yeah. And the system is designed to protect the system and promote the system. All hail the system.
Yeah. And I'm definitely not doing that. And Kat, you're not doing that either. And is your thought that's the only way you're going to survive? Is if you don't just hail the system? It sounds like you're arguing at almost every turn. I'm just finding that I've had in 3 months probably 3 arguments, so averaging about 1 a month.
So I think that at this point, it's my position to present information. And if they want to take that information, they can. And if they don't want to take the information, then obviously you're not trying to build a greater academic knowledge base or understand people. And I don't want to interact with you or do so as little as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I am. Like I said, in those discussion boards, I've had other students reach out to me and want to know more, be like, thanks, learned so much about autism stuff. And that to me is I have to do that. I can't control other people over and over again in my brain. And I really want to make these changes. But I know that later down the road, when I do have my degree, when I am making it to where I'm not going to get burned out before that point, me doing the diagnoses is what's going to make the biggest change.
But that brings up a big thing, because again, with the system, hammering you have to go above and beyond to engage in autistic self-care, whereas your neurotypical peers do not. So therefore, you must learn on the job the actual skills that will be important for you to impart to your clients, because you are learning the skills that you will need to teach others. But you're not learning it from school. You're learning it in spite of school. You're learning it because of school.
Yeah, I'm trying to pay very, very close attention to my experience and my questions and what works and what doesn't work, because it's a whole new frontier. I haven't seen much information about a type of therapy for autistic people that are going through school or academia. There should be something like that.
Oh,
there should. Actually, I totally agree. Yes,
Matt, you should invent a type of therapy that does that. But
we'll branch out from AUCT. And this again, Kat, you've coined expectation sensitivity. You figured out the link between autism and the lady parts. You've learned, you are, as we speak, making all these new connections and doing the research on the clock, which is why I think that you will be an invaluable addition to the ranks of the academics. But at the same time, you cannot discount what you have learned so far and how you can share this even without passing the gatekeepers, even without those degrees, because, with the whole like scarecrow thing, you were very hard on yourself and thought you didn't have a brain because you didn't have a diploma, but that is incorrect.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, thanks guys, you're really like fluffing me up. I just drink beer and do hair and type on a computer. It's kind of how I think about it. I guess I need to work on the self-esteem things. Whoops. Back burner right now. Back burner.
Oh my goodness. I did want to mention a book which I found really fascinating. Also tried to get this person on this podcast and did not get a reply, but maybe we will get her on at a later time. And it is Sophie Phillips, who just released a book called The Autistic Postgraduate Woman.
Ooh.
Yeah, Navigating the Neurotypical University. That is the subtitle. And I read the book, and it's really good. It's really depressing, though. It did not make me feel any better. And I just feel like I am really in this position where I actually have a final today. But then it's my last final, and I'm in this like in between semesters, and I'm like, what am I actually doing? And I get how good the end goal is, but I am like, if I burn out in the process, which seems quite likely, then like that. And when I read The Autistic Postgraduate Woman, I was like, oh, it's only going to get worse. Like there were some more hints of what was to come. Like I've only had a little preview in my first few months. And then I'm like, if not me, who? Like if
do you have a mentor outside of that? Like maybe an autistic person, or maybe
I do have autistic people at the school that are super helpful and make me feel
at the
less
school
crazy.
Though?
Yeah.
I think you should find someone outside of the school that has been through it. I think you need like a separate person. That's what I have, and she helps me
I'm going to include this link, and we'll put that in the notes, because if you're an autistic person and you like the Star Trek, which I am of both, there is a thing called the Klingon Rite of Ascension.
Mm-hmm.
And it is basically, if you want to become a warrior, you got to walk down this path, right? And you got all the other Klingon warriors on both sides of the path, and they keep. Oh, my battery just for my headphones just went out, and all of a sudden the sound went weird. But you got to walk down this path with your Klingon warriors on each side, and they keep jamming you with pain sticks, causing unimaginable pain. And if you're able to get past all these warriors with all these pain sticks and get to the other side, you are acknowledged as an official Klingon warrior and acknowledged that you are worthy of fighting for glory for your house.
I don't want pain sticks.
But that's the thing. The system is designed to punish us and push us. And this is the inherent ableism in the medical community too, because in order to become a doctor, you have to go on like 36-hour rotations. You have to push through pain. You have to ignore your meat body's needs. You have to ignore the burnout, and you have to keep going and going and going and going, because that is the ableist society that academia has fostered. And for some reason, again, the neurotypicals glorify suffering. The neurotypicals glorify the pain sticks. The neurotypicals glorify your ability to be a warrior if you survive. And all of academia is about pushing you past your limits, defending your dissertation, going through all of this extra pain and extra suffering so that you can get the letters and get the papers and everything. And that is an inherent flaw with the system, as far as I because again, I am not a fan of pain. I am not an advocate of suffering.
Yeah, but that is apparently this is the way.
It is
this
their
is
way.
the way. Yeah, this is the way we have to forge through.
If you want to be a warrior, you have to survive the pain sticks.
I hate the pain sticks. One of the things that's been messing me up the most is, why can't everything just be due on a Sunday? Why does it have to be due throughout the week? And then I won't remember it because apparently flow state's not a thing.
Yeah.
They've come up with all this research which it's not on autistic people, it's on everybody, but
yeah,
where if the more you engage with information, like on separate days, the more you retain it. That's not how my brain works. And that is suffering to me, to force myself to be motivated to do something throughout the week instead of on a day. I promise you, I will, if I remember that day as like, we'll say CBT day, I will remember it that whole day. I will not remember it if I'm doing it in between brushing my teeth and going to work. No.
Because we are not good with transitions. We are not good with, we don't form habits. See our habits episode. Yeah. We actively have to think about literally everything. And it takes up a lot of mental space. And most people don't do that.
Yeah. And I tried to ask for it as accommodation. They were like, no.
Oh, that was a good, yeah. They're very picky about what accommodations they'll give you. And they're not very accommodating.
2 extra days for homework if I ask in advance, but can't all be due on a Sunday. Wouldn't that just make it easier for everybody?
One of the things that I want to study is the neurotypical's tendency towards pathological demand compliance.
Yes, I love this.
Pathological demand compliance, yes.
Because I believe, again, with the top-down socializing, neurotypicals love following orders. With Loki's speech, "You are made to be ruled," it very much fits neurotypicals because they love being told what to do, when to do, how to do it. And it requires them less thinking. But we are quickly running out of time.
We are indeed.
But if you're interested in learning more about Kat's work, you have a Facebook or a TikTok or...
Yeah, how can people find you, Kat? Tell us more.
I've got a Facebook, I've got an Instagram, and I'm working on a little website where you will be able to read my thesis.
Shall we link that in the show notes?
Absolutely.
And Angela, if people want to see you, they can hear us twice a week.
Not just once, but twice.
And as a matter of fact, if you're interested in learning more about neurotypical pathological demand compliance or our PDA, you can hear from us on Tuesdays in our culture episode. But if you want to learn more about PDA, tune in to our next advocacy episode with Richard Woods, who has a very interesting perspective on PDA.
Right? Well, I think it is going to be a great episode. I will see you then, Matt.
I will see you then because I am trapped in this podcast. I can't get out. And I would rather be here than in the neurotypical world. So I will be here with you twice a week, every week. But until then, have a good one.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast Advocacy Edition.
Be sure to tune in for our Autistic Culture episodes every Tuesday, where we celebrate autistic contributions to society, culture, and history.
For even more autistic culture, consider becoming a paid member for exclusive perks, like live Q&A calls with us, a virtual writing circle, and our new Self-Defined Living course by Becca Laurie Hector.
Fun fact, Matt, it actually costs us $8 for every minute that people see or hear on the podcast. But our member pricing is just $8 a month.
What a bargain!
What a bargain! Buy 1 minute and get 500 minutes for free. Seriously, if you can afford this, we really appreciate your contribution. It makes all this possible.
And of course, the best way everyone can support what we are doing is to rate, review, share, and subscribe on Substack or your favorite podcast app.
This is the way.